Or
This
doesn't he? And it does
conference
it.
will
Can't you
now
go
be
through phone on
recorded.
that?
Well, if here's what happens with the phone. I have a question. Okay, what is it? And then it gets all explained, and then I'm like, yeah, I can help with that. I have a link. I'll have to send it to you in an email. So it's way better just to email
I was
support at
I was talking the meeting right
thunderlaserusa.com.
now. George
Do
wanted to know
what?
about the meeting right now.
What do you mean?
George, he sent a message. He's talking about the meeting we're in right now. He
Yeah.
wanted to know if there was a way to get into it by just his phone.
Yeah, just click the
Yeah.
link. It should
Yeah, just
do
yeah.
the
It
same.
Sort of
just
what I thought.
oh, okay. I thought you meant getting into the ticket system.
No.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Yep, I can
Yeah.
hear you. It works.
Oh, you can? All right, it's working. It wasn't working earlier. Never mind. Please ignore the previous text message.
It
You
sounds like you're
sound you
in that.
sound like you're in a empty toilet room.
Oh, I see the chat now. Okay, I'm behind.
That's the
Sorry.
microphone on my Mac Mini. I don't have the MacBook Pro anymore, so I don't have the camera. I don't have an external microphone.
Do we sound
We
like?
can tell.
There is a way. Let me see if I can pull it up where you can pull a phone number. If now that I read it, let me see if I can find it though.
Unmuted. So wait, do we sound like George sounds?
Always.
No, you
No.
do not.
Because we're on a Mac Mini. That's why I asked.
No.
Okay.
It's
She
George.
just completely blew
Oh,
right
she
over
has
my
a nice
comment.
camera. See your camera up top? Your camera probably has a microphone in it.
I have no idea.
Hey, I have something I can get angry about now.
I can't find it.
Is that
I
what
can't.
you mean, angry, Craftsman?
Hey, George, are you're on a Mac?
Yeah, Mac Mini.
Okay, well, you can select your phone as the input
That's right.
source.
And then it'll tell you
It'll
what to
grab it
do.
from
I
the
can't.
input.
The number's out there somewhere, but I can't find it in this. They've redone the the skin on this thing, and I can't find the phone number to call in on. It's usually in the invite, but all I get's a link to the
Just
main meeting window.
you just download the GoTo app on your phone.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't even need to do that because all he wants to use it for is audio. So all he's got to do is dial a phone number, and it'll dial
No,
into here.
yeah, he just needs to
Yeah.
use his like Chris or whoever said, just opt to use the phone as your camera and your microphone.
Yep,
See.
Apple does cool stuff like that.
I can't find that phone number anywhere. I keep looking for it.
Yeah, because you can do the same thing on Android.
No, you can't.
Yeah, you can.
Here you can.
Nope.
Not near cool.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
There's an app for that.
See, you gotta have an app.
Either way, I was looking at phones the other day. They'll let you do 36 months on those things now because it's still like $33 a month for 36 months. Goodness.
It's ridiculous.
All right, well, we're recording, and we have a couple of new people.
Yeah, they're just sitting there, listening to us ramble. They're probably going, "What in the hell?"
Yep. So, I'm Chris, or CeeLo. Most of you guys know me. Thunder Tech Support, and we have Mr. Myers in the corner there, and Mr. Bell, the world famous Mr. Bell.
I don't know about that. Maybe not for the right reasons.
We don't. We're not saying why. Anybody that is new today want to talk about anything specific, have questions, comments, or concerns, turn your mic on and go ahead and speak up now before we get into anything that we're going to cover, which is not much. Nobody?
You can jump in at any time too. Just tell us to shut up, and you'll see. You'll see. So
There's George. Look at that. You got
Hey,
to work.
hey, Chris.
Uh-huh.
Hey, this is James from I came on a couple meetings ago talking about trying to do a pause layer to change focus height.
Oh, yeah.
Um
Mm-hmm.
I was able to try to do that with that pass-through mode, but what it does is on every, I guess every entity or every vector, it actually wants to pause that amount of time.
Oh, for every
So
single one.
yeah. So I didn't know if y'all had a better idea to try to do that.
Are you referring to the whenever you start like a vector cut, that initial 10-second or up to 10-second fire off?
Yeah, so like
What?
what I was trying to do is just instead of like sending two job files for an engrave layer and then a cut layer, I just wanted to be able to pause momentarily to change the height um, without having to create two files. And there was that, I think it was the pause, or not pause, before
Not the start.
pass-through mode. Yeah, the start time. And basically what it'd do is it would pause after every single, like if it was 3 letters, it would pause that amount of time after each letter. So that didn't really work too well.
You could use full Z-axis control and just have it do it automatically.
Yeah, it's one file.
Then you wouldn't even have to stop.
But you have to use autofocus to do that, right?
No.
You don't?
Well, I mean,
Okay.
you're using relative moves, so you'll want to focus it first, so it has a reference, and then you tell it how many millimeters to move up or down. So my
Okay.
workflow is to focus with the autofocus or at the nominal manual focus, 6 millimeters or quarter inch, and then that's where be my starting point. So if I want to cut, I'll drop it 3 millimeters for the cut, or defocus a couple millimeters for the engrave, or whatnot. But it depends on each job and the material thickness. Uh, like
So
if I wanted to engrave and cut quarter inch material, for instance, I may focus at 4 millimeters instead of 6. So for the cut, I'm focused in, but I'm also still defocusing a few millimeters. So that still works for the engrave. Then you don't have to change you don't have to change at all. You just leave it focused in 3 millimeters and you get a defocus on your engrave automatically. So that's one
okay.
option. If you want to actually move it, you can set it up with the full Z-axis control where you define how many millimeters from the reference point. You always want to turn that toggle on that says, what's it say? Use relative moves only. Otherwise, you'll have
Yeah.
to define thicknesses in all of your layers and all your materials, or it won't know what to do.
Yeah, I
Yeah, that's
definitely
what I was going
recommend
to ask. Yeah.
relative moves.
So
It's
that's
not
Definitely
worth
something you got
dealing
to
with.
practice. Definitely something to practice and test first
yeah.
before you start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the full Z-axis control will let you do exactly what you want it to do. Define a height for the focus for each layer.
And then as
Okay,
a
so
point
that's
of
an option.
clarity, when you enable Z control in Lightburn, that's really just telling Lightburn to encode Z motion moves inside the RD file, which is the run file. When it sends it down to the machine, those are encoded. So even if you turn Z moves back off in Lightburn, the file that's already on the machine will still execute Z moves. You're not actually telling the machine not to do Z moves. You're telling the Lightburn to not encode them. So keep that in mind. A lot of people end up crashing their head because they forget and then they set the focus wrong and the machine still moves.
Got it. I'll have to try that next.
Yeah.
If you wanted to
It,
do a pause, you could create another layer that goes right after the engraved layer and make only that layer pause and set the power to 0 or something. What's happening is you're setting that for that entire layer, so it's going to apply that pause to every design element in that layer,
Okay.
if that makes sense. So you
Yep.
could create another dummy layer, basically, that comes right after the engrave before the cut, and make that layer do that pause stuff without actually applying a power. That way it doesn't mark your material.
Just some small
I
shape with a
I
nine
think
second delay or something.
I think so. We do something similar in that power test, where we fire the machine from 0 to 100 in 10% increments. So we use a similar thing there.
Definitely try that.
Who else has got something? Not really any new faces today. I'm glad James came back,
Mine's getting
even
uglier.
after even after dealing with us 2 weeks ago. He came back.
I always miss it. And I'm like, damn, it's 5 o'clock.
So I got a unique one. When I go to score a line after doing an engraving, if I set my power high level to 0 and my low level to 0, the laser tube is still firing and it's scoring a line.
So
What do
you
you
have a
have
line move.
So
in
you're
your
saying you're making
machine
a
settings?
multi-layer? You're making a multi-process layer where you do the engrave first. You're doing basically a fill plus line.
Yes.
Is that? And
But
you're saying when
you know how you have the second tab that you can open up in
uh-huh.
that.
And what are
Yeah,
you
you have a
setting the
multi.
powers to?
Yeah. 0 and 0.
Why are they both at 0?
I wanted to see if the laser tube would fire at 0, and it does.
It doesn't like 0. It's probably getting confused.
Plus in your machine settings, 0 is mapped to a actual percentage output. Because DC tubes generally don't fire at low rates, and everybody wants to be able to say, I'm going to run 1% power. So think about it like wheel horsepower versus crank horsepower of your car. You got crank horsepower coming out of the tube, but you get nothing at the surface. So we've got to bump that percentage up. Default 7. You can bump that up to say, okay, when I throw in 1, I get some sort of mark, some sort of output that actually makes it through my mirrors and lens and touches the surface. You might be experiencing that, or possibly a glitch in Lightburn that is carrying over a value that the DSP is then
Yeah.
outputting a PWM signal to the LPSU.
Yeah. I think if you put 1s in there, you'll see that it won't fire. I think because
Actually,
we have to set.
I think that it's preset to 7 being the min,
7's the
and
mins, 70's
so
the
it may
max.
just, even if you go below that, I think it may revert to 7, or is that even possible?
Probably.
I
Yeah, it's
think
probably.
adding a 0 in the max or min powers, it does something goofy. So that's why I enter 1s in all those material test files. Or that's why it's 1 to 100 instead of 0 to 100, because it wouldn't accept a 0 and do right.
Well, and then truthfully, Lightburn should not be taking 100% and sending that to the controller. So if you've ever tried to modify the layer power and you have 100% as your layer power and you're modifying it on the actual controller itself, you can't get over to the third digit. Rita's really only expecting to 99%.
Yeah.
So there's some
Yeah.
odd stuff that can go on, and maybe Lightburn is seeing the 0 for the layer power, not actually writing in the command to say, okay, we're going to tell the laser to fire, but it doesn't actually say I'm going to fire at 0. It just says just fire, and it has the last power setting, or it could be the min setting of the tube. A couple things.
So I got a question. If my laser fires at 4%, it's really at 7.
No, it's really at
Correct.
the 0 to 100 power scale is between 7 and 70%. So if you fire at 1% power, you're going to get 7%. If you fire at 2, you're going to get 8.5, whatever, however that works out. So 0% is technically, but it's not. You know what I'm saying? It's a range within a range.
Right.
Okay.
We know the tube will not activate until
Yeah.
after 7% power, so we're
And
starting there.
right, yeah,
7% at the controller though, right? Lightburn doesn't know
right,
better. Yeah.
right. It just says 0% of whatever range we set in the controller configuration.
Okay.
So, and don't take a deep dive into that, because when you do, then you start saying, I'm only getting 70% out, realistically. If you think about it too much, because really it's just to quantify what you're doing so you can repeat it. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if that number says 594, as long as you know what that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I only ask because if I turn it down to 3.5, the laser will momentarily not fire and then start firing on like lettering.
yeah, right.
So
And so you're technically, now you got to also think, as soon as it starts firing, there's also a gray area there where the beam may not be stable. Even though it's
Okay.
outputting something, it may not be a good steady beam. So you may have to come up a little bit more so that you don't get that right there at that threshold, those anomalies.
And that's why the min threshold exists, so that you could put in 1% and get just a trickle of energy at the surface.
Hmm.
But yeah, so the power supply is looking for basically a 0 to 5 volt PWM signal. When we do the 7 to 70%, it's that
What
portion of that range. And then
what's the
Lightburn gives you
PWM?
0 to 100. PWM?
What's that?
Pulse width modulated
Modulation.
is, yeah, so basically it's modulating a 5 volt signal, but through duty cycles, that 5 volt will appear to be, say, 2.5 volts, which is equivalent to 50%, because that's 2.5 over 5, which is 50% power of the actual power supply. But Lightburn maps 0 to 100 to the settings that we apply, which is 7 to 70, which then gets output by the DSP to the Blades power supply. So there's a lot going on there. But what you could do is bump your min up a couple percentage points if you wanted to, so that you get a steady firing at 1%.
Yeah, raise the threshold. Yeah, and the closer you get, you don't really want to mess with the max power, because if you go over 70%, you're going to be driving the tube in excess of what its operating max current is. So, but on the low side, if you figure out, for instance, what you're firing at, and move it up so that you get that range, you'll actually get a little more resolution. So you'll be able to dial in that range a little better because you got it tighter. That's probably not a good way
Yeah.
to explain it, but
No, I mean that's dead on, because when I'm doing photos, we're hovering right at that threshold to turn on, and then going up. Even 0.5 sometimes will
yeah.
just keep it stable
Well,
enough to.
and that's another thing where the power comes in, because you're doing that with a 130, which a lot of people find difficult to dial in, because that
Right.
lower threshold, the minimum output you're going to have is what, 13 watts or something like that, maybe. Whereas an 80 watt or a 60 watt or even a 100 watt, you can get far below that and still maintain a uniform beam signature. So, but yeah, I mean, all the stuff you've done, I haven't seen any banding. I haven't seen any kind of anomalies whatsoever. So you must be holding your mouth right, CeeLo.
I got
It
a
takes
couple more
time.
questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go.
This is like the first summer I've had this. I live in Louisiana, and I've been keeping it on the intelligent mode for the chiller. And just yesterday, it started experiencing like up to 32C at the chiller. So I put it on constant. Is that a good move, or put it back?
Assuming you're out in some sort of unconditioned humid space.
Yeah, my shop's being built right now, and so it's in a unconditioned garage.
Do you is there any humidity control, any swamp coolers, anything that's creating humidity?
No, it's
Just
just
the
a
natural.
standard
Yeah.
2-car garage with
With Louisiana humidity.
From
yeah
an
yeah with
operational standpoint,
98% humidity.
it's a
Yeah,
good
exactly.
move, because you're keeping your water at a steady 20 degrees, even though the laser will operate within a range of whatever to 30 or 31 or 32. That fluctuation can reveal itself in output anomalies. You know what I mean?
Yes,
So
I
that
started
is,
noticing that. That's why I was asking.
yeah,
I started noticing cutting performances
yeah,
going down when it got up to like
Yep.
34,
yeah,
35. And
yeah,
I basically shut it off because I thought something was wrong elsewhere. And
mhm,
then I realized the temperature at the chiller was 34,
yeah.
35.
I'm actually
The
surprised you
good
didn't get an alarm.
Yeah, the good news
Yeah.
is that alarm. If no news is good news, we get a lot of questions about the chiller, and if it's not blaring an alarm at you, it's okay. Can it be optimized? Yeah, putting it in constant mode is a good idea for you probably. Watch for condensation,
Yeah. But
build up
does
on the inside
the
of the machine. Mhm.
but in intelligent mode, doesn't it I guess it fluctuates based on ambient temp,
Ambient.
correct? So
But
if
Correct.
you don't have
if the
a.
if the ambient's around 30 in the garage, then won't it not alarm?
Well, it depending on the ambient temperature, it could get up high enough, for it to alarm, but it would if it was going
Yeah.
outside parameters,
Okay.
it'd beep at you. So if it didn't beep, you didn't get into the danger range, But
Yeah.
then again, keeping it at the constant 20 will give you a lot more repeatability and more uniform beam signature and all that good stuff, keeping that temperature, squelched.
Will the new shop have air conditioning?
Yeah, it's almost finished. It's got air conditioning in it.
Nice, nice. You'll notice an improvement there. When you go to that, if say you keep it a constant 74 degrees Fahrenheit, you could drop back into intelligent mode and letting it float if you wanted to. But
Okay.
the cooling system, as your ambient air gets warmer, it is not going to be able to cool your water as effective, right? Just
Right.
like your air conditioning unit outside struggles when it's 105 degrees and 99% humidity.
That's how it is. Got to keep my AC
Yeah.
on 60.
Yep.
We also seen users post once you do get into the air conditioned space, your exhaust ducting, leaving that hooked up overnight, or if you come in and you got a cold shop and then warm air is entering through the exhaust back in the machine, you will experience condensation, fogging of the glass stuff. We want to avoid that as well. So at least start with a blast gate to try to disconnect any sort of backdraft coming through the machine.
Okay.
And leave the lid
That
open.
hot cold. Yeah, that helps too. Leave the lid, leave the tube door, as much as you can so that it can naturalize to the
Equalize.
environment versus your
I was
And
kind
that
of
works
worried.
in
I was kind of
reverse
Yeah, I was
as
kind of worried
well.
about that. I have a check flap on my exhaust outlet, but was wondering if it would draw AC out of the building and out the exhaust. I guess has to, right?
Yep.
If
Absolutely.
the, Mhm.
So there's been discussion about being able to build a plate that would go on your front intake and then plumbing that to another outside source.
Away from the exhaust outlet.
Yeah,
Pull that right through.
Infinite cycle.
yeah, but that always comes up when you talk about air conditioning, pulling that hot air back in.
Yeah. I've thought about taking a piece of Schedule 80, 6-inch PVC or something, and slicing it right down the middle, and capping it on each end and just putting a exhaust tube on it and just like attach it to the front to cover the louvers. That way you can
Hmm.
pull your makeup air from outside. There's a couple of places was that Germany that sent those photos? It was a makerspace, and they had like 20 Thunders in there, and they had makeup air coming from the ceiling on every one of
Was
those
that or
machines.
that or Australia? One of those two. I
Or
remember seeing
Poland.
that.
Maybe it was Poland. It was another. It wasn't a distributorship, but it was in another country, and they had a bunch of
Yep.
those lasers
Love you.
and did exactly that.
So y'all mentioned that for the makeup air, we're actually looking at the right side of the 130, replacing the door, the panel, with like HDPE or acrylic or something, so that we can pipe air from the window straight in that side, and then just sealing these vents on the front.
hmm I like the air coming in the front and going out the back because that's the way it's designed to flow across the work. So you see some of these lasers that exhaust from the left side, and you see some lasers that have exhaust, intake air on the top, or maybe I believe is that who does that? They go right through the lid
At
on the
AP,
top.
AP.
Maybe it's that. So there's different ways. I kind of like it going through the front, since that's kind of the way we're engraving and trying to push everything anyway. But yeah, wherever you can get the air makeup, I don't think it matters so much where the inlet is.
So the problem is the Hobbit here, who uses the machine. If I eat up another, 4-6 inches on the front, then she'll never reach halfway through the machine.
Do you,
but
And
so you
yes,
really
It doesn't
kind of
have to
want
be
that
that.
airflow come across the front. I mean,
yeah.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be thick. I mean, it could be an inch. It's going across the whole front of the entire thing. It could be an inch thick.
an inch matters for
For her,
subject.
yeah,
above the line, keep it above the line.
it's recorded at the moment.
I mean, literally, there's times where she's got to damn near have a step stool so that she can reach to the back of the machine.
I'm
Maybe you
with
cut
you,
that
girl.
crossbar out.
That's right.
Yeah,
Uh,
you
Crossbar
could
sucks.
pull a loco First thing you do is get out the Sawzall on the
Yeah.
review. That's
So-
great.
Hey, Tommy.
24, it's coming out.
So Tommy, this is not an official Thunder whatever, but the discussion, that front plate, is removable as the bypass. It could also be attached if you're going to go through this work to the door. So everything would be attached to the door as you lift the door up and out of the way. You would actually at that point gain more access to the honeycomb bed.
Hmm.
You're gonna have to get the angle grinder out, some welding, some stuff going on there.
I like that.
That's
Yeah.
what I got a neighbor for.
Yeah.
My louver door is never on. So.
And I guess a simplistic solution for some people may be to cut a piece of ply to go in place of that louver and actually put some 4 or 6 inch, a couple of 4s or a 6, exhaust duct just directly on that, and just kind of make one, kind of like you do for the exhaust on windows when you want to put the thing in the
Right.
window and close it. That would be a quick, easy option without having to retool and do a bunch of things too. But I like the idea of integrating that louver door on the top. I don't know what that would do long term to the gas shocks. They may see a little more wear. You may want to have an extra set around, maybe add a helper spring. I don't know.
I got
Lighten
about
it
8
up.
sets of those damn things because I ordered the wrong ones. So I got those 50-pound shocks for days.
Just don't put too big a one on there. The next picture you send will be her head stuck in the ceiling. It launches her.
Help! Help!
It really looks like just a few self-tapping screws will go
There you
in
go.
there and hold it the way the lips and all seal. I like it.
Just make sure
I do
she
like
can
it.
reach in there without hitting her head.
Oh, that's not a problem.
It's me that hits my head, not her.
Is that why you just run the CNC?
I try. I've been doing pretty good with the fiber. I mean,
Yeah.
I do more with it.
I got one more question before y'all can get going.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
What is the, I know I've been talking about heat with the laser. What does the heat do to that stock air pump? It starts making noise after it runs for about 4 hours. Like some really, really loud noises.
Probably not meant to be 100% duty cycle, even though it can run a while.
Yeah.
That may be something you might want to email us about.
Yeah, I think I emailed y'all about it when it was starting to make the noise, and I can't remember the response. I think it has to go completely out for it to be warranted.
Yeah, if it's making an abnormal noise, though, we don't want to let it just go,
Okay.
So we can revisit that.
Yeah, every time it's mostly when it starts up after you start up a long job and you start it back up and it's like, "Meow," and then it'll shut off after a couple seconds. But
I'm sure it's way hot. Being in a conditioned space may alleviate some of that. If your ambient temp is already that high, I could see where that could cause that thing to rattle a little bit, maybe.
I just bought all the stuff for the air compressor, so that's getting hooked up as soon as it goes in there.
I got you.
Yeah,
Well,
you'll
be in good
you'll
shape.
be very happy.
Yeah,
you'll be very happy
absolutely.
with that.
Make sure you get that moisture separator and maybe even a dryer.
Yeah.
I was going to ask,
especially
is
where you
the incandescent dryers, is that necessary?
The man with the plan right there, Tommy.
Yeah.
Okay, who's got a question about who is that?
James.
James.
I think I watched your YouTube video yesterday.
So I literally have a refrigerated air dryer and a desiccant dryer and water separators at each regulator for the lasers. And so far, after however long, my desiccant is still purple. A few of them are starting to turn pink, and that's our fault for not turning the refrigerated air dryer on.
The other day you forgot to.
Yeah, the other day I forgot to. We've had zero problems. Now, at first I thought this was overkill, but there's no overkill when it comes to taking the moisture out of the air. So yes, I would highly recommend the desiccant dryer somewhere in the line. I know Jim and I have had this conversation, I don't know, 20 times by now. with, adding drip legs and desiccant dryers. The refrigerated air dryer is well worth the money as well. So that's just, my opinion.
And you live in a high humid heat climate?
Dude, I am outside of Fort Knox, Kentucky. It is
Okay.
probably 80 degrees outside and 95% humidity right now.
Ugh.
Top is air conditioned, but my air compressor is outside.
Yeah. Yeah, we're at 98 and 99% humidity. 108
Might as well
feels like
be rain.
108.
We're at 93% humidity. So
No, that was feel like
Now,
60% humidity.
James,
No
are
arguing.
you going to have your compressor inside your air conditioned space?
It will be, yes.
Okay. Do you know if your unit will do any kind of humidity control? Like a lot of times, air conditioned spaces are in the 50 to 55% naturally.
I'll have to see. It's just it's a mini split, so I'll have to look into it.
Okay.
just
Yeah,
add a
it'll run a cycle
dehumidifier.
to.
Just
Yeah.
add a dehumidifier to your space. That's what I got in mind. It's the easiest way to control it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 200. I actually just bought one off of Amazon. It was like $200 for 4,200 square foot, and my shop is 1,200. So yeah, it's working. I can tell the difference with the dehumidifier in here, and it's just running water. It's like a hose. The back.
There's been numerous times this year that I've actually had to put a sweatshirt. This summer, I've actually had to put a sweatshirt on in my shop. I've literally had it at, it's been 80, 90 outside. I've had my shop down to 70 with 30% humidity, and it's cold. And I'll actually have a fan on as well, moving air in the shop, and I actually go grab a sweatshirt. It's freaking cold. But my air's
And
dry.
why do you aim so low on your air? Just because of the stuff you're running, or
Oh, my air, the temperature wise? Or are you
no,
talking
no?
about humidity?
Why do you run to the 30%?
Oh, I just like the dehumidifier running 24/7.
Okay.
Plus I do antique restoration stuff too.
Okay. I didn't know if you
So
had
when
like
I'm
print
trying to,
applications.
well, I got the 3D printer out in the shop too. So I try to
Yeah.
keep my humidity down on top of that.
I'm going to say
But
our wood shop, we've got the dehumidifier going. I've got to keep, kiln dried lumber stable. And when you get
that's another reason why too.
horribly humid days like this,
And it's just
'Cause, I mean,
disgusting. It just
well, part of
sucks.
the problem is too is when I have to bring in air, like if I'm running my exhaust fans for the paint booths and stuff, my humidity comes up so stinking fast. But then at least I can get it calmed back down quickly as possible because you start getting fish eyes and everything else in your lacquers and stuff with too high humidity. Plus, too, if you're doing anything with latex paints and you got high humidity, and you just wait till next year until it dries. Oh, Chris,
It's
I
bad
sent you
hair
a
day too.
PM. Yeah, well, I gotta have hair to have a bad hair day. Well, I do got this, but I sent you a PM, by the way.
You bought
Wires.
a air unit,
Ooh.
James B.
Hey, say that again? I didn't hear you.
Say you purchased an external air unit?
For air compressor?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, I did.
Okay. It'll make a world of difference over the stock air compressor. I ran the stock for about 6 months, and everybody kept saying to me, once you get compressed air, you'll never look back from a
That was
separate.
another thing. I really didn't know how to size the air compressor. I know you can never go too big, but limited on power and stuff. I just went with like a 1.5 horsepower. I think it's a 60 gallon. I was wondering how often people consume air. Um, like how frequent does the compressor come on when you're running a job for say 3 hours?
It
2 hours?
It's
depends on
just going to depend on so many variables on that one. It's hard to
Yeah.
tell.
versus
Is it
engraved.
just an engraved job with low air, or is it a 3-hour cut job with high air?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. And I would recommend running about 40 psi from Tommy's experiments with the line size. After 40, there's no point to it. It almost defeats the purpose.
Yeah, there's
Even
definitely
though
a
the
diminishing point of return there.
yeah. So 40 psi, you won't use that quite often, but and keep your engraves super low, and you should be fine.
The guy
I
from
think I
Yeah.
had a 120, 150 gallon tank, and it cycles, but I mean it's not too bad.
Okay.
the guy from Alaska did a huge calculation one day where he determined that anything over, I think it was like you just said, 40 or 45 psi, he basically gets a Venturi effect where it actually
Yeah.
causes negative in the other direction.
Right. Yeah, that'll happen.
I think our 60-gallon cycles about every 20 minutes or so on long cuts, maybe 30. I don't know. I've never
That
set a
makes about
time.
sense.
I'm going to have to
Yeah,
pay attention to that tomorrow.
that's hard to tell.
I also have mine set to auto drain every 3 hours for 2 seconds. So my drain plug opens up for 2 seconds, blows out whatever water collected in the bottom, and then goes kicks right on and juices back
I
up.
need one of those. I need one of those.
Call me later.
All right,
And
later.
I drained mine in the driveway the other day. Ooh wee! Talk about some nasty rust water.
I just
Yeah,
drain
That
mine
that'll
in the
stay there
shop.
for a long time.
I have a bleed off valve in the shop that I just drain my tank across the shop floor and just let it dry. Done it
that's
for
where
years.
it was to go drain the tank on the other
I
side of the
figured. I seen him take off the second someone mentioned. I'm like, he just thought, oh shit, I haven't done that in a week.
It's pretty loud.
Well, I kind of want him here for this, and I'm glad Alicia's here too, because my next step, unless somebody else has questions, is to ask you guys about something. So, anybody else have some questions? Alicia, you got something to say? Nice visit from you.
Yeah, hey guys. I'm excited. I got my Odin in. I haven't cracked the cage yet, but that's one laser. I was very careful driving it back on the tractor. Like, this one can't fall off.
You're gonna be amazed at the detail.
It was I looked at the size, but it's a little smaller than the 35, I think. So I'm super excited. I gotta reconfigure some tables in here so I can get it all set up in here. I'm about at the max of my design room here now.
Yeah, you're pushing your limits with the amount of machines you have, huh?
Yeah, that I'll probably have the OTEC in here another few weeks, and then I'll have more space up. But
To
it's
get
only
rid of that
800
thing.
square feet, so we're getting a little tight.
So I have a
And
question.
let's go, Alan. How are you doing?
Uh, I'm doing good, thank you. Good to be here. I've got an opportunity now to do a little bit of restructuring from a computer standpoint here in the shop. What would y'all recommend relative to Ethernet? Would you recommend Ethernet direct to the laptop computer or Ethernet to the network?
How many machines?
Just one.
Just direct.
So when you say direct to the network, you've got like a router that controls your internet access that has ports on
Yeah,
the back of it.
I've got a mesh system,
Oh,
and Ode has some Ethernet ports on it.
so when you say mesh, that kind of throws a flag for me. I'm not a big fan of that if you're going to be sending jobs over your network, because the way the information has to transfer and the way your mesh handles it. Preferably if you had a router there that your computer was hardwired to and then the machine was hardwired to, that would work great. You could set up your IP configuration and do that kind of work, but I'm just not a fan of Wi-Fi and mesh. My ultimate example would be to get a $90 brick computer, it's a HP Elite Desk, mounting that at the machine, running your Lightburn off of that, and then remote desktoping to it. That way your connection is still hardwired. Not ideal for everybody, but that's been my go-to for that. But if you have the ability to run the cable direct to your computer, that's going to be the most reliable connection for this communication because it is non-deterministic, meaning if it gets data sent to it and there's a little blip that gets missed, there's nobody to say it got missed. So you could be missing a chunk of your file through the transfer and you run that file and you don't realize it until you've skipped a cut line or everything shifts over. So I'm
Okay, so you
anti-Wi-Fi.
mentioned you mentioned getting Chris another laptop and putting it at the machine. If you did that, would you use the USB connection to the machine or Ethernet?
I still do Ethernet with a multi-port hub that it's basically sitting next to that little brick PC. And the PC, I mean, it's like 6x6
Yeah.
by inch and a half thick. It's a little HP Elite desk, and then you can get a 5-port hub for like $20 from
Amazon,
TP-Link.
Walmart.
Yeah, it's TP-Link brand, I think, from Amazon.
Yeah.
And we've got it kind of in the article that talks about connecting multiple machines. And you can actually put that computer on your network where it has internet access and can talk to your machine, but leave your machine controller off of the internet access network. It's a
Okay.
way of setting that up. So there's a lot going on there, but you now have a reliable connection to the machine, and then you can use Microsoft's remote desktop protocol to take command of that computer. So if your Wi-Fi drops out and you lose connection to the remote computer, it still maintains its connection to the machine.
Yep.
Because the hub is sitting there.
I run a hybrid. I run mesh, and I've run mine off the mesh, and I personally kind of like it. But with UDP, there is packet loss. So I run a hybrid. I've just got a dumb switch that I have my computers and lasers plugged into. That goes to my mesh. That way, that switch, we still have a physical connection. You see what I mean? But you're still able to access your primary network.
Well, from what you're telling me, I think what I'm going to do is my machine you see that window over across the room there? That's where the machine sits. And so I can run an Ethernet line from over there here to my workstation. And I think that's what I'll do is just run that line over here and hook it up direct to the laptop. I mean, I'll trot across the room occasionally, but that's fine. That's no big deal. So I appreciate that. I've been using the USB thus far. I've had no trouble with it. I just don't like having to carry the laptop over there to the machine to do that. And I thought, Chris Meyer, I actually thought about buying another laptop to put over there as well. But I've got enough computers scattered around already. I think what I'll do is just run the Ethernet line over based on our conversation. So
Yep.
thank you for that input. I appreciate it.
Yep.
One other quick point I heard just a little bit earlier about using exterior air to feed the louvers on the front of your machine. If you do put a header in, you need to be cautious about the pressure drop that's going to happen when you add a long distance of suction on the front of that machine to an outside air source. You might consider putting a booster in on the outside air and blow a little air over to the machine and help the exhaust fan. But if you add a long length of line on the front of the machine, I'm afraid you're going to have a pretty negative effect on the gas flow, because those blowers, as you know, they like short suction lines. And so when you begin to expect to suck air from the outside, you might run into some pressure drop and therefore reduce flow. But you can put a smaller blower on as a booster on the exterior vent to blow air into a header that blows it into the machine, and then the other exhaust fan. And that would be pretty inexpensive, and that way you could also keep the plenum on the front of the machine smaller if you're boosting the air over.
Cool.
Yep. The fan
James.
is certainly happy to sit there and not move any air if it doesn't have to. It'll do the least amount of work possible.
James, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the the Ethernet situation. So are y'all against the Lightburn bridge?
No, it doesn't actually use wireless protocol.
Okay.
It's wireless, but it doesn't use it. Lightburn communicates a different way to the bridge, so you don't have the same problems. The reason he made that is to eliminate those problems that you get from traditional wireless networks.
Okay. Yeah, because I that's what I use today. I just have a Pi that's mounted
Yeah,
inside of the machine.
yeah,
I just wanted to know
yeah.
if it was okay.
I've got a couple too, and I've got one. I used to have them hooked up. The only reason I don't now is just because I can plug up direct Ethernet and I don't have to. But they always
Yeah,
work great for me.
I
cool.
got one I could sell somebody.
Well, I mean, for my money personally, $90 for a little brick computer that runs Windows 10, I think it is, and it's been pretty reliable, especially compared to my Lenovo. It runs Lightburn, it runs EasyCAD. I can open up support tickets, browsers. I can download files to it.
Sync with
It's
Dropbox, all
Yeah, I mean
that.
for yeah, my favorite. Give me some of that OneDrive, would you? But for $90, and it has a hardwired Ethernet to the machine, and it can connect to wireless or can connect to my hardwired network already. Functionality
Without
wise, I just yeah,
that,
better.
Yeah, I actually
that's
just
a good
bought one of
point.
those on Amazon Prime Day.
Hmm.
It's called a Kamrua Plus Mini PC. So I could probably use that the same way, huh?
Yep.
Is that the one that was
Yep.
like $260 or something? I think I saw that.
Yeah, it was $180 on sale with like
I just
16 gigs of
I
RAM.
just bought a new Mac and then moved my old Mac over to run the machines.
Well, there's your problem.
Nah,
Here we
watch,
go.
Yeah, here we go.
watch it.
Don't
Max
start
Pro.
with this.
Don't backtalk the Macs.
I was
I
waiting
run
for that.
4 Macs
I
in
just want to
here.
say something I noticed obviously, or it's obvious. Grant's looking old.
Yeah, he had a kid.
A
That
kid
father,
will do
that
that.
father, that
Hey,
father stuff is really wearing on him. That
Papa
youthful
don't
look that
look
he used to
nearly as
have.
old as I do.
That's the pot calling the kettle black.
Hey, I am old. There's no giving away from that. But just
Now,
that kid has aged you some.
I got black eyes, that's
How
for
how do
sure.
you know it's not Thunder that's aged him some?
Yeah, no
That's
kidding.
true.
But the only thing that's changed recently for him to age that quickly is the little one, which I'm sure he's enjoying a ton. But
Thank you, Jim.
Um, hey,
now hold on before we get off Grant, does he not look like a character from Tombstone talking about being your Huckleberry and all that stuff? Look at him. And
What?
that
Yeah,
oh
Monko asked
god,
me earlier,
yeah.
are you going to join in the webinar? And I was like, well, every time I join in, they just want to talk about random stuff that have nothing to do with Blazers, and they just start picking on me. So I don't know.
Oh, it's
you,
because we all love you.
I know.
I will
know.
have to agree with you now, Grant. I'm sorry. I apologize. You can leave now.
No, it's okay. I can return the favor.
I was giving you a
All right,
compliment. You like Val Kilmer.
so so Brian, can you pull that up for me?
What's that?
So I wanted this. I just sent you a link in our Thunder chat,
The
and
recent.
if you could pull that up, and I want to discuss the Thunder Academy and what we're doing here. So what I need
Okay,
is
I
input
got you.
on a direction. Yeah, what I need is an input on direction of how people learn and what benefits our users. So the idea behind it is you get a new machine and you need to know how to unbox it and really what is the best way to learn. Go to the Nova series. So the idea is to have an easy workflow that has videos that you can pick, and it'll walk you through the unboxing, the setup, and then your first project. And if you scroll down a little bit, Brian, once you get to that point, then you can, oh, that doesn't look right. Once you get to that point, then you can have other projects, and then also, so there'll be another section with all these boxes here. that will really kind of show you how to align your laser beam, how to run your rotary, how to make a map frame project, so it'll go from these first 3 steps, which will get you running and out of the box, and then it'll move on to other aspects of using your machine. So how do we learn the quickest? Considering we have some new things coming down the pike and we're going to have a whole bunch of users onboarding, we need to know how our users, our current users, which we have a lot here that are veterans, that can help us, really help me steer this.
Well, if you want me to preface that, I
I
think
do.
that's wonderful, and we do need that input because we need to know how to best adapt this to everyone's needs. Um, that said, we still, in my mind, looking at it from a very simplistic efficiency standpoint, sometimes letting the end user dictate how it's run is severely counterintuitive
Right.
as a general rule. You know what I mean? But
Right.
any channels that we can do, because I know we're looking at written content, we're looking, for people that had rather dig through the text, and then we have video content for people who are visual learners more. Um, so yeah, I think we need to discover as much of that as possible, as long as we just don't go way out of orbit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I think the
Right.
point is not to change the information, just to make it to where it's
Easily,
easier to understand. So same
yeah,
information just said in a way that's easier to digest.
right. Easier to
Right.
find,
Right.
easier to navigate, all of that. Yeah.
Right. And in a stage process, right? So almost like a flow chart where you move from one step to another and you can cleanly unbox and then you can cleanly set up and then, let's make a keychain, which incorporates cutting and engraving. And we've covered all of those things from origins to settings for cut and engraving on whatever particular machine it is. So if we can successfully do this, I think it'll make a lot of future Thunder Laser customers very happy.
Yeah.
But I like to hear input because this is in its infancy, and I don't want to have to redo it later on. So I like to take input now before I finish it.
Well, I think George put his 2 cents in here, videos pretty much, which we know that's
Yeah,
how people like to learn nowadays is through videos.
right.
Honestly, we just make a video and then do voice to text, or you have a script, you just follow the script.
Keeping
Yep,
stuff
and
as simple and as stupid of search words that you can use.
well,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
should say stupid, but you know what I mean. It's me and my wording. It's never appropriate.
Well,
But keeping as dumb as possible, I guess, would be to make it as easy as possible.
and there's some stuff that you just cannot dumb down, right?
No,
But we
Yeah.
need to make it easy and we need to keep them engaged so that they do want to learn. And sometimes, like personally, I try not to read anything. First thing I do with a manual is throw it out. So for me, a quick little video where I can pause and work up to that part and then continue on and then work up to that part is good.
Modular, basically, is what
Yeah,
we're after.
exactly. Yeah, right.
and if you have a 1 hour training or a 45-minute training video of having it segmented with, yes, I know it takes time editing videos and stuff like that, but having the key drop downs so that at minute 15 you're going over engrave settings, for
Yeah.
example. And so that way people can index videos quicker and easier, and they could actually search for that in search terms. If you have a segment like that with that, it helps with the SEO of them actually being able to find those specific segments.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If that makes sense of what I'm saying. I know what's in
Mm-hmm.
my head. It's just trying to get it out.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Intro,
Right.
all that. Yeah. And that's YouTube and stuff will do that stuff too. So, yeah.
And for some reason, your Nova series isn't showing up right, because I have in the next drop down, there is a how to, and then you have manual focus, and you have Chuck Rotary, and then it'll have how to align. I don't know why it's not showing up on your browser. But
Oh,
oh,
this?
there it is. Yeah, there
It's
you go.
here now.
Yeah. So it's going to look something exactly like this. Is what my in my head. It's, I don't know who that is.
It's an ad.
Oh, you clicked on one of the links. Got it.
Yeah, I clicked on the link.
Right.
I followed
Right. So
the flow chart.
got it. So in my mind, that's it. You have 3 stages to get set up, and then we go into the how-to of how to use different accessories, how to do different projects, how to align, and I'm hoping that is a good format.
If I may, I know somebody's got their hand raised in there. Just from a education point of view, after I have taught young adults and adults in a variety of settings, you look at keeping it as a crawl, walk, run, segmented out. Whatever information you want to put, stop and think, okay, is this the crawling stage? Is this the everything they need to know before you move into, the walk stage? Just like watching
Right.
a kid grow up. It's the way we taught privates.
Grant.
It's the way we taught young firefighters. It's the way, you teach EMTs. And us, most of us being more experienced laser users, and I'm just as damn guilty for it as probably anybody, is the simple things that should be a crawl phase. People aren't getting because they're trying to do photos, which is a run
Yeah.
phase.
No,
Let's
yeah. I mean, we have so many people that try to set up their machine, and they're setting it up, and they're installing the camera, and then they're trying to run the rotary. Well, let's start at the beginning and make sure everything's running correctly, and then let's move
Yeah,
on to installing the camera afterwards. So yeah, we're gonna take it step by step for sure.
Still sharing?
Yep, you're still
that's
sharing.
Yeah, Brian.
I can
What was
put
that, Mitch?
together an
I
email
was
for
looking for
you.
questions.
CeeLo, I can put together an email for you of stuff like that and an outline form, my 2 cents worth if that's what you'd like.
No, yeah,
Like,
I do want opinions, because by no means am I the professional at educating. I mean, I've been running my House of Lasers for 5-6 years now, and I teach what I know. But we're launching a product, and we're going to be reaching Glowforge, in my opinion, Glowforge level people. So, and I mean numbers, not, I don't mean like lower denomination, but I mean those types of figures. So we're going to be touching a lot of people, and they need to be able to hop on so it doesn't overwhelm support. So they get the Thunder experience, just like all of you have. You guys have received an experience where, we're ready to answer any of your questions at all times. If we onboard 500 people a month because of a new machine, it needs to be an easy flow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want everybody's opinion. Absolutely. Send whatever you can to me, and I will dig through it, and I will try to run this learning experience the way that people learn, people absorb.
Basically, if you're going to put it from Glowforge aspects, you need to basically tell people right off the get go, everything you thought you know, throw it out the window because you know nothing. Because this is a different world, different machine, different process, and this is not a solely automated system as a Glowforge. Just get
Right.
people the blank slate board.
They're not going to jump out of the box and set themselves up, that's for sure. But we can make it as easy as we can.
No, but I mean, and in fact, the Glowforge in its what was it? It was its